Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Daytona Beach City Commission. We're delighted and happy to have each of you with us tonight. Ms. LaMagna will review the procedures for tonight's meeting.
Good evening. Agendas and all exhibits pertaining to items on the agenda are posted in the lobby. Persons may visit City Hall during a public meeting to make public comments, subject to these city procedures in compliance with all recommendations from the CDC to minimize the spread of COVID-19. The Commission chambers will be closed for in-person attendance by the public. The City Hall lobby will be equipped with a lectern and a microphone for public comment and an audio-video feed to the Commission chambers. Yellow forms will be provided for those who wish to make public comment before the Commission on items on the agenda. Persons may enter the lobby to speak on an item before the City Commission when called upon for 2.5 minutes. The lobby will also have a limited defined area with social distancing for people waiting to make public comment. In addition, the exterior entryway to City Hall will be equipped with a loudspeaker for persons waiting for permission to enter to make public comment due to space limitations in the lobby. The public can also monitor public meetings from their iPhone, iPad, or other electronic device on the city's website and enter City Hall for public comment at the appropriate times. All persons must comply with social distancing requirements while at City Hall, such as by remaining at least 6 feet apart, and use of a facial mask is mandated to combat the spread of COVID-19. Item number 7 is your opportunity to address the City Commission concerning any item on the consent agenda. Please indicate on the yellow speaker sheet the agenda item number of the item or items that you are addressing. Items or discussions not listed on the consent agenda will not be heard during this comment section. Agenda items under item number 9 are public hearings, and citizens may speak at the designated time. And resolutions under item number 10 are also open for public comment, and citizens may speak at the designated time. All citizens completing a yellow form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach a lectern, please speak clearly into the microphone and give your full name and address. The 2.5-minute clock on the monitor above the dais will start running when you begin to speak. Pay close attention to your time. You will be told when your time has expired. Item number 13 is the public comment forum, and it will convene after the adjournment of the business meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to speak on any issue that is not on the business meeting agenda. All citizens completing the green form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach a lectern, please give your full name and address. Disorderly conduct in the public meeting of the City Commission. Article 2, Section 6238 of the City Code of Ordinances reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any person to behave in a riotous or disorderly manner in any public meeting of the City Commission, or any committee, agency, or board thereof, or to cause any unnecessary disturbances therein by force, shouting, or any other action that is calculated to disrupt such meeting, or to refuse to obey any ruling of the presiding officer, or such meeting relative to the orderly process thereof. Please be courteous and respectful of the views of others. Personal attacks on the City Commission, city staff, or members of the public are not allowed. All conversation must take place either at the lectern or on the dais so everyone can hear the business being discussed tonight.
Ms. LaMagna, may we have a roll call?
Commissioner Delgado?
Here.
Commissioner May?
Here.
Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Commissioner Henry?
Present.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Traeger?
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry?
Here. We will now have the prayer invocation, led by Commissioner Traeger, and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Delgado.
Heavenly Father, bless us, residents of the city and the surrounding area, and all of your people here on earth. Listen to our prayer, please. Help us get over this pandemic as I see you are making steps towards it for us. We really, really, really do want to get finished with this as soon as possible. Help us to decide the better parts of our resolutions and our ordinances for the people of the city of Daytona Beach. Bless our first responders and all our essential personnel who work so hard to keep us going through this time. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks. We realize that you are the omnipotent power and you have the sway over everything. Please look down on us and help us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
We'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the June 26, 2020 Special City Commission meeting, the August 24, 2020 meeting declaring the results of the primary election, the August 26, 2020 Daytona Emerging Workshop, and the September 28, 2020 Executive Search City Commission Workshop.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner Delgado. You have any questions or comments? All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now move on to our agenda approval. If there are any changes, our city manager will address them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had an addition to the agenda 10E, Bethune-Cookman University special event approval to administrative items.
Second.
Take a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner May. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, we have no presentations this evening, so we'll move on to item number 7. This is public comments for people wanting to address the City Commission on items on the consent agenda, and I have one speaker, Mr. John Nicholson.
Mayor, before we take the comment, I need to highlight a change to one of the resolutions on consent. It's for item 8A. This has to do with the emergency measures related to the local state of emergency. The resolution's been revised slightly. It's a cleanup to be consistent with state law, allowing all the restaurants to be open now to full capacity. We had adopted a former emergency measure in one of our resolutions, which allowed outdoor seating while there was limited capacity indoors. So we are going to repeal that resolution to fall in line with the executive orders from the state.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Nicholson?
Ready? John Nicholson, Daytona Beach side. 8H. I understand that this basically is, I'm guessing, because the backup material doesn't say and this agenda item doesn't say, I'm presuming it's for the water meter, but I would like to add that the highest and best use of our city property. We have meters, or do not have meters, in an area that we could make a tremendous amount of money. And I'm asking you to consider meters on the side streets of Seabreeze. Every Friday and Saturday night, it's packed. There are people making tons of money in parking lots, and yet there's free parking on our streets. So I'm asking you to consider, not only there, but anywhere else, that the city can look at all of their properties for its highest and best use, especially North Grandview, north and south, put meters, and on Wall Olive, north and south, that's where the crux of those people are parking. They're paying $10 to park. So if they're going to put $2 or $5 in a meter, they're going to think it's a deal. So I'm asking you to consider it and then keep that money into the area to fix up the area and to maintain the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was my only speaker for the consent agenda.
All right, do we have any other questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Or we don't have a
Oh,
motion.
we don't. I'm sorry.
Second.
Mr. Reed, and then a second.
Traeger.
Traeger, my apologies. We have a motion now and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item number 9, which is our public hearings. Item 9A is Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Grand Isle First Amended and Restated Plan District Agreement and Preliminary Plat. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance approving the first amended and restated Grand Isles Plan District Agreement between the City and Shoreline Development 5 LLC to allow for a 32-unit single-family subdivision with a private marina and associated site improvements on approximately 47 acres of land located on the west side of Halifax River, south of Wilder Avenue, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, approving the preliminary plat for the subdivision, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved. Second.
Who was the motion?
May?
Commissioner May and the
And-
second Commissioner Traeger?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And I do have Mr. Joe Hopkins here for any questions on behalf of the applicant.
All right. No questions for Mr. Hopkins? Okay. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move on to item number 10, which is our administrative items. Item number 10A is the City Manager's Office Beachside Redevelopment Board appointment resolution. A resolution appointing 2 members to the Beachside Redevelopment Board to serve 2-year terms ending December 31st, 2022, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to report.
Good evening. This agenda item is to appoint 2 members to the Beachside Redevelopment Board. The membership terms of Amy Pyle and Marsha Tuggle have expired, and both have served 2 terms. We have 4 eligible applicants: Gary Libby, Dean Pepe, Mark McDonald, and Chris Goodrich. And this is a ballot, and all of you have a ballot in front of you.
And Mayor Henry, I do have one speaker on this item if you want to do that before the final vote.
Yep, let's let the speaker speak.
Okay, it's Mr. John Nicholson.
Where's the,
Betty?
I'm sorry, Mr. John Nicholson?
Where's the ballot? They don't have a ballot. You can get a ballot.
oh, got y'all ballot?
We were going to send out a search party, John.
Letitia, it's very hard to understand you out there.
Sorry.
John Nicholson, Daytona Beachside. There was a problem with one of the members of the board. She had changed jobs, and she's now outside of the area, so she had to resign. It is very important that we look at, and I'm one of the ones that pushed that there be people that live in the area on these boards, and I felt sorry that she had to go, but that's the rules of the game. So I'm asking you, when you choose these people, choose people that that live in the area and are very active. Now, Gary's not in the area, and I don't know why he's on the list, but he's an extremely great person, and he used to run the Museum of Arts and Sciences. Also, there's a person on the board that's been there more than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 terms. And I spoke before, when we have people on boards that are 20 and 30 years, it really is too long, that we really should have time limits on our boards. I would ask Betty at some point, I know there's one guy on the planning board that's been there 20-some-odd years. So if we do have restrictions on this board, and obviously if these people are term limited, I think Dino might be term limited, please be aware of how many people are on our boards that serve like forever. Even if they take a year off or 2 and come back on, I can understand that. But to serve for 20 or 30 years is way too long. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Goodman. In the packet, we have something, it's called 10A additional applicant, right? And near it says that the address listed is not in the city, it's in the county. So is this person not eligible because they have a business here?
That person is eligible because she has
A
2 or
business.
3 businesses.
This is-
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, on the redevelopment board, there are term limits. They can only serve 2 terms on the redevelopment. Everyone have a ballot?
And then could you please address what Mr. Nicholson was talking about? Mr. Libby does not live in this particular area. Does he have a business in this area?
Mr. Libby, it says, yes. Mr. Reed, Mr. Berger? On the information that I was given, it says the address is 723 North Oleander.
south, I think.
That's on the other side of.
The question was whether Mr. Libby lived in the city.
Main Street
He lives in
requirements.
the city.
Yes.
Do they have to live in the city or do they have to live in the redevelopment zone?
They have to either have a place of business or be a resident
A resident
Within
of
the
Daytona
redevelopment.
Beach?
within the redevelopment zone, either or.
Is 723 in the redevelopment zone?
No, it is not.
So he's not
But
eligible?
how does he qualify? He
He is,
qualifies.
he is the secretary
Oh, of the,
for the Pinewood
Pinewood Cemetery.
Association, yes, sir,
Perfect.
cemetery.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, okay.
This or something? Is that how that works? So I just want to understand how he's,
They manage the cemetery.
and so that's how, okay.
Right.
Because the cemetery's in that area.
And
He qualified before and was on the Beachside Board at one time for that
I
reason.
think I
Same
gave you
reason.
my ballot, didn't I?
he gets my support.
Well,
Okay.
It is circle.
What's your name? And you have 2 votes.
Yeah.
Please select 2 names.
It's right here.
Okay, Commissioner Cantu, Dean Pepe,
Oh, wait,
and
wait, you still need mine, you still need mine.
Krista Goodrich. Commissioner Traeger, Gary Libby, and Mark McDonald. Commissioner Delgado, Gary Libby, and Krista Goodrich. Commissioner Henry, Dean Pepe, and Krista Goodrich. Commissioner Reed, Dean Pepe, and Krista Goodrich. Mayor Henry, Gary Libby, and Krista Goodrich. Who didn't I call? Because somebody didn't put their name. Commissioner May, Mark McDonald, and Krista Goodrich.
So,
All right, Libby and Pepe have 3 votes each.
yes.
I don't,
we need-
I know Mr. Libby, so I'm strongly behind him. I don't know who else has somebody else who knows Mr. Pepe. But we have to vote again.
So Krista Goodrich got the
She's-
most,
she's-
and then Gary Libby and,
We have to
Okay.
vote
Pepe
again
was top.
between Libby and Pepe.
Oh, okay. So how are we going to do that?
Just
want to
take another revote.
those two?
Do we need to do it by ballot, or can they just?
Oh, we can just say it.
Yeah.
Libby.
Libby,
Libby.
Commissioner Henry?
Libby.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we have Mr. Gary Libby and Ms. Krista Goodrich. Can we have a motion?
so moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move on to item 10B, which is the Economic Development Advisory Board appointments resolution. A resolution appointing 6 members of the Economic Development Advisory Board, appointing 3 members to serve 3-year terms expiring February 28, 2023, and appointing 3 members to serve 3-year terms expiring February 28, 2024, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to report.
The membership terms of Larry McDermott, Bob Rand, Thomas Blond, Carol Killian, Carl Fields, Chelsea Aben, and James Zeisler have expired. Mr. McDermott, Mr. Rand, Ms. Killian, and Ms. Aben would like to be reappointed. We have 2 additional applications from Harry Floyd and Dr. Victor Gooden. And this 6 people make up the board for the 6th.
So moved.
And second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
And for the record, I didn't have any public speakers on that item. Sorry. Moving on to item 10C, it's City Manager's Office Citizens Police Review Board Appointments Resolution. A resolution appointing 7 members and 1 advisor to the Citizens Police Review Board for a 3-year staggered terms and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman, too.
In the February 17th commission meeting, each commissioner and the mayor nominated a person. An advisor was also nominated to serve on the Citizens Police Review Board. Also at that meeting, it was requested that these individuals would be invited to this meeting tonight to introduce themselves. Therefore, I believe they have all signed up.
Okay, we're going to hear, and I guess it was recommended at the last meeting that we go ahead and appoint. However, I think we should hear from them and then consider, because we have to remember when we initially agreed to have this board, it was done from the perspective of, and Commissioner Gilliland is no longer with us, but he was very adamant that we have folks, appointed to the board who didn't have a certain persona as it related to opposition to law enforcement. And we discussed that. So I want us to be very careful in our deliberations and the decision that we make tonight. I'm not trying to persuade or dissuade anyone prior to, but we have to make certain that we remember that the purpose of this board is we're not trying to get our police department. I have said this, and I will stand by this. I believe we have one of the best police departments anywhere in America. But this was done at the height of some pretty horrific events that were transpiring across the country as it related to law enforcement, but it wasn't indicative of our law enforcement department. But we wanted to be proactive in bridging the gap and having better communication and greater transparency between our law enforcement and our community. But in no way, shape, or form do we want to have a board that might send a different message than that. So we'll go ahead and hear from them and then have further discussion, unless anyone has anything additional to say before that time.
Just based on that, are we saying that we actually, if we don't agree with somebody or if we have a question about somebody, that we can go ahead and investigate further and ask questions?
We absolutely, we have to remember that because I nominate a person, you don't have to put your stamp of approval on that person. The board doesn't have to do that. It's a vote. And so, but I would want to give us time to make certain that we don't have a public, brawl over this issue, because I don't think it requires that. But if we want to come back later because we learn things that may or may not be congruent with the choices that we want to make, we have time to do that. But this is a part of, we do want to hear from folks so that we can. But we don't have to make our final decisions tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
I have something. If we're going to have this board, I'd like to call a workshop, just so we can make clear what this board is about, so they know exactly, because, Internal Affairs is the experts of reviewing cases and stuff, and I want them to be aware what their job exactly is. Because when I hear,
You mean a workshop for them?
yes.
I agree.
And, I mean, and maybe
Yeah.
us too, so they know.
I think that's a good
they're not
idea.
here to investigate the police,
Yeah,
because they have professionals that does that.
I would support that.
They
That's
are
a good
a
idea.
review board, and I'm okay if you guys want to have a,
Well, I thought we should have one. I asked last time, had we made
Yeah,
all of the
definitely.
decisions in regards to how this board was to be done, and I think I got jumped on saying, yes, we have, but I don't think we have, because I'm not sure what they're supposed to do. So how do they know what they're supposed to do? And as you've indicated, you know, we don't want this to be a board that is jumping on our police department, but rather supports them. And if they find something, then yes, we will research what they find. But we need to understand that we're not bringing this board together because there's an issue, and we don't want it to be an issue.
Correct.
I have no problem with that, but I think we've
And I
got it
don't want
written
and I don't
about
want it
what
to
they're
become
supposed to do.
a political thing too, where, I mean, we have lawyers that are going to be on this board, and not to offend any of my lawyer friends, but you know where I'm getting.
Well, I have issue with that too, so.
Okay,
Okay.
so, okay, well, let's hear from the folks. I know what they're doing, because we did go through this, but if you all feel like we need to go back and have another sort of consultation, let's do that. But let's, by all means, they have certain things that they have to do that we know the expectations of them also.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we
do
still have background
some
checks
that
too.
Are we elected, they're just lawyers, they have no police experience, and that's a big difference. Having police experience and being a lawyer.
Yeah, that's true. But remember, that's why you want your board to be, it's not one side or the other or anything. But the main thing you want, to me, whether a person has law enforcement experience or not, you need people who
Common sense.
are fair, balanced, and good citizens, and who we believe are not after the police. But anyway, let's go ahead and hear from folks.
Okay, the first person I'm going to call is Ted Duran.
Oh, I'm right here. Good evening.
Good evening, Ted.
Good to see you, Mayor, Commissioners. Let me start by thanking you for considering me tonight when you vote, and a special thanks to Commissioner Traeger for nominating me. I have a great interest in this topic, having worked in law enforcement in the past here in the city of Daytona Beach. As I drive around, periodically I'll think of some event that occurred, like on a street corner or a high-speed chase down a particular street or that type of thing. That was 42 years ago. And I've worked every day of my life in the city limits of Daytona Beach. I didn't realize that until I stopped to think about it. My first job was over here on Silver Beach, old Linhart and Upchurch law firm, and then I opened a practice on Seabreeze Boulevard at 444, and then, of course, I work now at 1020 West International Speedway Boulevard. I am a lawyer, but I would like to think that I have no interest in trying to practice law on this board. I have no interest in that whatsoever. I see this board as an opportunity. Really, I've envisioned that we will probably become a walking billboard for law enforcement. I think this is an opportunity for us to take a look. I was talking this morning to my good friend, Police Chief of the Shores, and he was telling me what I would probably see. And, I expect that it's going to be a very positive thing for everybody. But I am a lawyer, but I started out with 3 jobs when I was 14 years old. I was a paper boy. This is all after school. Paper boy, paper boy, mowed yards, and I was a worm counter. I counted fishing worms, and I got paid 3 cents per canister of 50 worms. My first W-2 job, my first real job, was as a dishwasher at a Red Lobster. I got my first pay was $1.40 an hour. And I worked my way up. The highest I ever got paid there was $3.20 after I became, they called it an expediter. And then from there, I went on to school. I worked my way through school as in the phosphate mines. I had help from my grandparents. I don't mean I put myself through school completely, but I worked in the phosphate mines while I was going to school at Florida State, and then came here and worked as in law enforcement as a City of Daytona Beach policeman, and then went to the University of Florida Law School and got invited back here by a law firm and started working here. Many of you, that I've been very active in the community, chairman of this or that, and I love public education. I've been involved in that since the day I came. I started Futures, if you're familiar with that. I was the one who formed the corporation. There were 3 of us that started that from day one. And of course, I've been the school board now for school board attorney for almost 20 years. So I would appreciate a favorable vote, and I look forward to working with the police chief and serving the community. This is my first opportunity, short of being a police officer, of really serving the city of Daytona Beach. And I relish the thought. Hope that you'll consider me. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Doran?
Mr. Doran, I'd like to know what the police chief of the other city told you might find.
I couldn't hear you, ma'am.
I'd like to know what the other police chief told you may see.
Oh, the other police chief I spoke to?
Yes.
Oh, he just said that I would probably be very surprised at how thorough the investigations are when complaints are made, and how he, in his experience, has seen over the years that law enforcement officers are really trying to do what's right, and there are a lot of good people. And he thought I would be very favorably impressed, with the level of investigation and reporting and those kind of things. And I said to him, that doesn't surprise me. But, and I mentioned to him at the time, as I said just here now, I think that, the Citizens Board like this, it could be a real opportunity to have an independent voice out there, having seen the inside and lauding the efforts of law enforcement. There's always in every organization going to be somebody that's going to do something really, really stupid. I don't think that this community would ever see anything like we've seen on television in some of these other states and communities. But if we did, I'm sure that law enforcement, the police chief, would be the first one to come out and say it was the wrong thing, if anything, God forbid, like that ever happened. So I don't see this board as somebody who's going to really come in and tell anybody what to do or make any real, maybe there's that one instance where we look at it and we maybe disagree, but with the police chief or and we make recommendations to the city manager, he does what he does. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir, I have another. Have you ever represented anyone that sued our police department or the city of Daytona Beach?
No.
Okay.
No.
And
No,
you're not-
I've only defended governments. I defend the city of Edgewater. I have defended the, of course, school system for 30 years, because I was hired to defend teachers in the school district and the school board for about 10 years prior to becoming the sitting school board attorney. I've also defended the state of Florida on many, many levels. If you noticed, maybe took the time and looked at my resume, I've represented almost every department of Corrections, Department of Transportation, I could go on. There's about 10 of them if you're interested. I've never sued government on behalf of any client in my career that I can think of. I did represent the state of Florida in pursuing insurance claims, insolvency funds, and those kind of things through the Department of Insurance. But
Okay. So you're not fishing for clients being on this board.
excuse me, ma'am, I'm not what?
You're not fishing for clients being on this board.
Oh my God. Well, let me just tell you, I don't need any clients. I mean, we all are in business. We need customers, right?
Yes.
I don't have any interest in looking. I've got, at this point in my career, I've got very substantial clients, and I stay very busy. And truthfully, I'm 64 years old. I don't want to work harder. I want to work less. So,
Well, let me interrupt you and say thank you for wanting to serve,
yes, ma'am.
and thank you for having your business in my zone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we try and keep the grass up, keep the grass green. I tell you, I hired this company to do it. They drive me crazy because the grass just doesn't get real green. You guys out there in the median, in the middle of International Speedway Boulevard, the grass is as green as, looks like it's been painted. So, I don't know. It's very frustrating. But yes.
And lastly, also thank you for giving Bethune-Cookman a home in your building.
I'm sorry, say again?
Thank you for giving Bethune-Cookman a home in your building.
Yes. No, of course.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Very, very, very precious to me.
All right, well, thank you, sir. And I
Okay.
appreciate you signing up. Appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Okay.
all. All right.
All right.
See you later, Mr. Traeger.
Our next speaker we're going to have is Shirley Copeland.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you this evening. I know you at a distance. I left Daytona and came back quietly about 10 years ago, and I've observed closely the workings of the city government. When I came back, I intentionally didn't get involved. But prior to leaving, I was very much involved in the community, and I've had some things to happen that have made me understand that I must recommit to being more actively involved in this community. I am Shirley Copeland, having moved to Daytona Beach in 1975, where I purchased a home, raised 3 daughters, and held just a few of these positions: employee relations representative for General Electric Company, director of the Comprehensive Employment and Training Program at BCC, the university that is now Bethune-Cookman University. And I was the assistant director to the Central Florida Community Development Corporation. Later leaving Daytona to assume the position of Assistant Director for Legal Personnel Incorporated. I had to return to Florida to care for my mother, whose health was declining, and I went to Polk County, Lakeland, Florida. While living in Lakeland, I assumed the responsibility of relocating the Hope 6 residents in Lakeland, and I had the opportunity to teach at a school that had a fancy name, Sable Palm, but in reality, it was a school for adjudicated young men who lived in cottages that were named after birds of prey. It was there that I had a wake-up call because over 90% of the students looked like my grandsons. I am very concerned about what is happening in the United States. What occurred January 6th brought to surface a lot of what ails us. And I want to say that while working at Sable Palm, I had the opportunity to be certified for the use of force certification. And it was strenuous training, but I soon learned that if the young men would comply, they would get the opportunity to show that they could perform as normal students. When I went into that classroom, I was told that they wouldn't earn a GED. The first week I was in the classroom, I stressed to them that they needed to make proper use of that time, and they began to study. And I walked away from that position with regrets because I knew that if they were encouraged, they could make a difference. I am a mother, I am a grandmother, and I'm committed to helping in this community. When I returned to Daytona after my mother passed, I assumed the position of the Hope 6 relocation coordinator with the responsibility of relocating people with community supportive services. Again, I was reminded that there are some people who are less fortunate who have a need to get special care. I'm a graduate of the Daytona Beach Police Academy. I also graduated from the Daytona Beach Citizens Academy, and I'm one of the early graduates of the Chamber of Commerce Leadership Academy. And you may be wondering, why do I want to serve on the City Police Review Board? Very simply put, I care. My first job out of college was working for the United States Senate in the 70s. I was a young, bright, intelligent, articulate woman of color. Oftentimes, I was mistaken to be of another race, and I had to endure the comments where individuals used the term nigger. And it was then that I determined that I would raise myself above that derogatory term. And I have spent a lifetime understanding, collaborating, and interacting with people who are different. And I've learned to do that in a non-biased fashion. When I am elected to the Citizens Police Review Board, I will commit to being fair, factual, impartial, and just. I may not have the legal background of a lawyer. I may not have the background of being a police, but again, I am a mother and a grandmother. I have 8 grandchildren, and if I work diligently to serve on this committee, I just believe it will make the relations between the community and Daytona better. I am excited about the opportunity. And if I commit to something, I commit 100%. The News Journal said that I was 72, but I've had a birthday since then. I'm 73 years old. And as I look in this room, I see faces that I recognize. And there are some good people in this room. But as the activity of January 6th showed us, we're not all there yet. And it would be my goal to work with this committee in an honest fashion. I believe it was William Cullen who said, William Bryant, and Dr. King reiterated, truth crushed to the earth will rise again. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you. And I didn't time myself. I don't know if that were 2.5 minutes or
Yeah,
not.
because she didn't do the timer.
We didn't give you the timer, Miss Shirley, but it was well beyond 2.5 minutes. But I will tell you this, I enjoyed every word of it.
Thank you.
So, do we have any questions for her?
I have a question, ma'am. Earlier, when you first started speaking, you mentioned you had seen things, and I'm wondering, when you said do you recall that part? You said you had seen things that have taken place, I guess, with police or maybe something. I didn't hear you. Earlier, when you were speaking, you mentioned that you had seen things, and I was just wondering, did you mean in Daytona Beach?
I have not witnessed them in Daytona
Okay.
Beach.
That was
but
all I
I have
wanted. Yeah.
witnessed them in other
Okay.
cities.
I just wanted to be clear that you didn't mean
Yes.
Daytona Beach. So thank you so
Yes.
much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Shirley.
for the
Okay.
opportunity.
Our next speaker, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, is it Amilcar Velez Lopez?
Good evening. My name is Amilcar Velez Lopez. I want to take this opportunity to address all of you and thank all of you and the mayor, our friend Derek Henry, for the appointment to the newly created Police Review Board. My name is Amilcar Velez Lopez, as I said, and I was born in a small town called Adjuntas, Puerto Rico, so I'm a hillbilly from Puerto Rico. My parents taught me that he who perseveres shall triumph, which has been the motto of my life. In 1959, when I was 12 years old, I moved to New York, and even though my English was very limited, I was able to earn the Helen Keller Achievement Award when I graduated from the 9th grade, which has inspired me to conquer all obstacles in my life. In 1964, I finished high school in New York City and returned to Puerto Rico to earn a bachelor's degree cum laude in sociology, psychology, and in concentration in social work from Inter-American University. I then attended Columbia University School of Social Work and graduated in 1970 with a master's degree in science. While working as a school social worker in Newark, I attended Seton Hall Law School at night and graduated with a Juris Doctor degree cum laude in 1979. I have been admitted to the New Jersey and Pennsylvania bars and to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals of the United States. I was appointed as a Newark Municipal Court judge in the year 2000 and served until I retired in 2011. I also served as the Essex County Central Judicial Processing Judge for 4 years. Presently, over here, I am a realtor with Watson Realty Company in Port Orange. I'm also an attorney in New Jersey, but I do not practice law in the state of Florida. I have been a co-founder of a number of community organizations and professional organizations which develop programs to help rehabilitate drug addicts, alcoholics, and also develop preschool programs and also develop educational and community development programs. My wife, Norma, who is here with me today, and I moved to Daytona Beach in 2011, and we have come to love and respect and especially enjoy the tranquility and the friendly neighbors that we have here. Presently, we belong to the Fraternal Order of Eagles, Area 4089 in Port Orange, which is a community service organization. I also volunteer to help homeless people and others in need over here. I chose to apply to serve on the Police Review Board, as I believe that my life experiences, my expertise, and commitment to serve the community will aid the board when reviewing police policies and disciplinary actions, and so that they will be more transparent and will aid the police, the community, and the city government so that public confidence increases while minimizing any tensions that they may have in order before they develop into negative situations. May God bless each of you and each of us. Any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
He was the advisor.
He's the advisor.
Well, my question to the mayor was, were you his advisor choice? Because I heard lawyer, judge, realtor. Oh, okay.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Social worker.
Social work and all that, yes.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. God bless you.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
With regard to your social work background, did you ever do therapeutic work at all?
No therapeutic as such. Basically, I work in the school system.
Okay.
I was a member of a team called the Child Study Team, and they would have a social worker who would do the family study as to the home situation and other factors, a psychologist, and a learning disabilities teaching consultant. We then would meet and make a determination whether a particular child needed special education or did not need special education. And if so, what was the best way to help that child with any particular assistance, extra assistance, or placing them in a particular school, or requiring home study in certain cases.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eduardo Garcia.
How you doing, guys? Member, Mayor, it's an honor to meet you in person and everybody else here. I think I'm the youngest one in the board, probably 47 in April 3rd. A little bit for myself, I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, and raised in Puerto Rico. At 18 years old, I decided to go 2 years of college to be an accountant. So my mom's being a single mom, it was getting expensive. So I decided, because my dad went to Vietnam, so I decided to join the military. Military only for 3 years. 3 years became 6, 6 became 8. Might as well finish at 21. So I retired from the military. I have 3 kids, 25, 19, and a 3-year-old. Why, yes, 3-year-old, but well, it happened. You know. I decided to move. It's okay if I take this off. Okay. I decided to move down to Daytona Beach. I like I ride motorcycles, so I decided it's the same weather as down to Puerto Rico, so might as well come down here and retire. When I'm married again with a Filipino wife, and I decided to do this because when I came back from the military, I did 2 tours in Iraq. I came back, I seen a lot of, PTSD, a bunch of my fellow soldiers coming down here and didn't get help. I decided to be a mental health counselor for the VA. So I took it on my own. I left the accounting business and came into mental health. So I decided to volunteer at the VA maybe 3 times a week in Philadelphia, moved down here in Daytona. I do it right now too. And I understand how cops, our police officers, are get out there and being exposed to a lot of stuff every day. I did 2 tours in Iraq. I know how you wake up every day and not being safe to come back home. So I like to help more mental health police and the police officer. And I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm sorry about that. It's my first time being in a bunch of great people here. But it's hard for police officers to be outside and come back and don't know if they're going to come back home. So of course, we do some negative stuff, but people don't see the good stuff too. So I like to help all those people, and for the community to not be afraid of police officers. They're here to help. We got bad apples, we got good apples. It's normal, and every single job we have is normal. But we have people to aboard, like you guys, and hopefully myself, to help read what's the problem is, and of course, we're not expert police officer, or we've never been to academy, but my expertise to being 21 years in the military, understand what's going outside and come back home, hopefully come back home. I'm a martial artist for 40 years. I started martial arts since I was 5 years old. I've been in the committee for the FAK Martial Arts Committee to be in the Olympics in 2020. But because pandemic, we couldn't go in. Hopefully next year we could. So I can relate on the hand-to-hand combat with police officers they have to deal with. We don't have to use excessive force, but sometimes we do. Because not all citizens are right. So we have to balance stuff on it. We have to find police excessive force and citizen too. So we have to combine them together and see how we balance are. Because sometimes we don't know what a citizen is all about. They might have something on them or something. I mean, we have to be precautious. So we can't blame police and everything. We have to get responsible for civilians too. So hopefully I can help. Maybe talking to police officer, see them face to face. I like to see face to face people. I read faces. So I don't have a piece of paper and start reading. I like to more explain face to face and see what's the problem. What can I help you with? I've been dealing with PTSD with a bunch of veterans almost like 3 years in a row. So I sit down with them and I tell them, what's the problem? I know I've been there. I've been divorced. I've been 2 years in the military, like straight with them. So I sit down with them and say, hey, what's going on? I'm a single mom. They raised myself. Yeah, I'm 47 years old on April 3rd. So I've done a couple of stuff in my life, So, and now I work for I'm a NASCAR for the Speedway. Been 2 years there. Great place to work. And I found Daytona Beach being a safe place for me and for my kids. Because for being 2 years here, I encourage good people here. Haven't had no problem with nothing at all. And I like seeing cops going around. Police officers going around, and that's what they're here for, to protect us. Sometimes some people don't understand that, but so being Hispanic, some Hispanic people are afraid. Well, I want to tell them this, don't be afraid. They're here for you.
So, Mr. Garcia, you're in Zone 3, right over here. I'm your commissioner. I'm the one who called you. Hello.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So I have a question. What are your thoughts, just briefly? What are your thoughts briefly on? I recognize that there's trauma or PTSD, let's say, in police officers with their jobs, but is there any space in there, any space that you have for maybe trauma that citizens experience and a little PTSD that they may have when they see police officers? Do you hold any space for that at all, that goes two ways, that people have been hurt in other places and then local people still feel the pain of that? Do you see it that way too?
I'm a little bit hard hearing.
Okay.
I have a hearing aid, so I'm sorry about that.
Can residents also experience a sense of PTSD and need a little extra help and care in the community? Do you believe in that also?
Yes, of course. Well, like right now, police officers, they risk their life every day. So of course, I always tell people, you have problems, but they have more problems than we do because they have to go out there. And
so my question is, do citizens also experience PTSD, being a citizen?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course they do. I would say single mom, they have too much jobs, they have the kids, what they're going to do. Everybody offers has PTSD a little once in a while. Everybody has them. You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, Major. Thank you very much again.
Our next speaker is Tom Koska.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can I take my mask off, I hope? First off, I'd like to thank Mrs. Cantu for her confidence in me to appoint me to this board. My home address is 925 Seaduck. I've been a resident of Daytona Beach since my retirement from the Chicago Police Department in 2001. I started my career with the police department in 1970 first as a beat officer, technical officer, until my promotion to detective. I was one of approximately 270 homicide investigators citywide assigned to the homicide section with the responsibility to investigate death cases, criminal and non-criminal, participate when necessary, to attend, observe, and participate when necessary in autopsies on homicide cases assigned to me, and to investigate shootings, stabbings, heinous batteries, serious assaults, and sexual assaults. And when assigned to an officer-involved use of deadly force, to conduct a thorough investigation, and upon consultation with the Felony Review ASA Assistant State's Attorney, to render a finding as to whether or not the shooting was justifiable or not. Upon my promotion to sergeant, in addition to supervisory duties, on occasion, the role of sergeant changed from that of a supervisor to that of an investigator of complaints of misconduct alleged against police officer lodged by a citizen. As a sergeant, the ultimate responsibility was to reach a finding based upon facts without bias or prejudice, utilizing two very important concepts, which are in the Illinois statutes and which are also in the Florida statutes. The rule of law stat with regard to the preponderance of evidence and the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. With my assignment to the command staff of the Deputy Police Superintendent, Bureau of Administrative Services, I was tasked with the responsibility to provide final command channel review of all complaint review investigations of members assigned to the Bureau prior to those results being forwarded to the Superintendent of Police. Having been promoted to lieutenant, I was assigned to a district, one of 25 in the city of Chicago. First as a field lieutenant, then as a watch commander. As a watch commander, I had the supervisory oversight over one desk sergeant, 3 desk officers, 4 lockup keepers, 16 two-man beat cars, 6 two-man rapid response cars, 3 two-man paddy wagons, and a 9-member plainclothes tactical response team. With regard to investigative responsibilities, the field lieutenant / watch commander had very specific responsibilities to investigate and render a departmental general order judgment on compliance on any incident involving a violation of a city license and any incident involving any member off duty or on duty of the department above the rank of lieutenant, and generally to review all complaint register investigations and render a judgment on any incident involving the discharge of a firearm prior to submission to the district commander. Subsequent to my district assignment, I was assigned as a commanding officer of the Medical Services Section and the Police Information Systems of the Data Systems Division. While in data systems, I was tasked with the responsibility to develop an operational manual and develop a training protocol, and with staff of 5, instructed approximately 3,000 members of the department in the use of the department's newly implemented criminal history records information system. My final assignment was as commanding officer of the Records Division Field Inquiry Section with oversight on the records processing and the records, hang on for 1 second, processing and records inquiry with a manpower complement of 225 members, sworn and civilian. An adjunct duty that I participated in as a lieutenant was to serve as a presiding officer at IAD, Internal Affairs Division, complaint review panel hearings. I have a BA, Bachelor of Arts, from Loyola University of Chicago in political science, a Master's of Arts degree from Loyola University of Chicago in urban studies. I have lectured at the University of Illinois Chicago campus, instructed at the Chicago City Colleges, and at the Chicago Police Academy. I have a list of cases that I was involved in, but I don't know if I should read them out to you guys. It might be kind of gory, so I'll refrain from that. That's it. That's me.
I have a question for
Sure.
you. As being a police officer, you know that the internal review
Yes.
is very thorough. Okay, so if there was no findings in a case, would you be more inclined to look for something to validate the board's existence?
I'm sorry, what do you say, board's existence? What do you mean, board's existence?
Okay, so let's say there was no findings in the internal police review. Would you, as a board member, be more inclined to set and look for something when they have closed a case?
Okay, here's the issue I have with that. The state rules, or state statutes, I should say, talk about police internal investigations. The sole responsibility for that rests with one person, whether in Florida, Illinois, New York City, Texas, whatever, with the chief of police. He makes the final recommendation. To throw, what I would envision this board as doing has to be another layer, if you will, of review prior to that getting to the chief of police.
Didn't go prior.
You can't afford to override the chief because that whittles down his authority and quite frankly, could, I think, I'm not an attorney, but could violate state statute. If that were not the case and it was allowed to set, again, I go back to my earlier statement about finding free of bias and prejudice based upon the rule of law, which is preponderance and beyond a reasonable doubt. Those are the two areas that you have to be concerned with. You can't say, well, because I got a feeling. No, that doesn't fly. And don't forget, you have to be a copper to appreciate what coppers do. For a person to come out of any place and say, well, I want to sit and judge what a copper did at that particular moment, it's impossible. One of the hardest things that we did when I was on homicide was on a police-related shooting. Because at that very second, that very, very second, you got to put yourself in the shoes of that copper when he fires that weapon. And you can't do that unless you have a time machine. Then you go back with a time machine. You have to look at what's all the weighing factors that come into place. But to come back to your question, Commissioner, absolutely, positively not. If the case is read, here's the facts, here's the conclusion based upon these facts, and not to devise up or implement or find another fact. No, you can't do that.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Sure.
I appreciate your resume. I
thank you.
completely appreciate your resume. I guess so my question is, in all of your years, just a quick estimate, a percentage, in all your years doing investigations, et cetera, how many times, percentage-wise, do you think that you have found in favor of the complainant versus in favor of the police department?
That is a very good question. I would have to really recollect for a second. Just give me a second to recollect. As far as the police-related shootings, fortunately, I only handled 2 of those, thank God. Both were in favor of the police, obviously because, well, I should say obviously because you don't know, but the police were fired upon first, they had to return the fire. In other cases, I had to sign off on cases where I had to sign off on finding a policeman, I'm sorry. I always say copper because I'm a copper. Finding a police officer guilty of a violation, not of the law, but of a city Department of General Order. I can't give you a specific number, but I have done both. I have found policemen. I have found unfounded allegations or exonerated allegations, or to the same token, I find it sustained. I have done that, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, that was easy. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
And thanks again to,
All right.
I think this is a good idea, but just one more thing. I think the board is a good idea in light of what's been going on in the country in the last 2 years. But I agree with the mayor that it has to be construed as a board that's going to be helpful to the citizens, but also support the police. We can't second guess what a police officer does, unless you're in their shoes. I think the board should be a review prior to going to the police chief for his final authority, Again, that's my take on it. That's my, leave the investigation to the experts. And, you know, we had tens of thousands of cases in Chicago. I'm sure you guys, we don't have that many down here. God, I hope not.
No.
But so, okay. Again, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I hope I get
Thank you.
the green light. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Irma Terry.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Irma Terry. I am the Community Resource Coordinator for the City of New Smyrna Beach. I have lived in this community for 33 years. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's in education. I retired in 2019 after serving 31 years with the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. I served as superintendent of a secure detention facility for 6 years, 14 years as an assistant superintendent, and I served in various other capacities within a juvenile detention facility. During my career, I was an academy instructor. I was a certified Inspector General's investigator. I was a quality improvement peer reviewer. I was a use of force instructor, and I traveled around the state to other detention facilities to review and make necessary changes to their day-to-day operations. I chose to apply for the Citizens Police Review Board because I felt that there needed to be some changes in terms of the relations between the community and the police department. And I felt that my experiences would add value to the team. At this time, I would like to thank Commissioner Henry for nominating me for this position. And I look forward to working with the city of Daytona Beach.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all have any questions?
I just want to tell you, I think you have a fantastically well-rounded background. I think it'll be a pleasure to have you on that board. So far, all the candidates we've seen have been, I wish all of our boards could look like this. I think it's amazing, truly amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Pierre Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, and most importantly, namely, Commissioner Reed. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. You appointed me for this board, so I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that the board is taking the time to listen to us, to vie for being on this board this evening. When I first heard about the board, one of the things that it took me back was the fact that I'm also a retired Marine Corps commissioned officer. I spent over 20 years leading Marines all over the world. But I started out, and I'm a big proponent of community service and a big proponent of public service. That's what got me interested in this board. I grew up here in Daytona Beach. My, I guess, community service goes all the way back from being a young Cub Scout in Pine Haven Projects. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Weebelo. I've been a Boy Scout. I was a crossing guard. I went from there to the Police Explorers. I was a police explorer for a while when I was 17, and then I went to the Marine Corps when I was only 17 years old. I used to, God rest her soul, my mother, I used to kid her that I told her I wanted to be a police officer when I was 17, when I was going to turn 18, and she says, no, that's too dangerous. And I laughed at her, I said, but you sent me to war. And I said, okay. So anyway, fast forward 20 years later after serving in the Marine Corps, when I came back to Daytona Beach, I worked at the Boys and Girls Clubs for roughly 5 years. After the Boys and Girls Clubs, I worked with Mad Dads. after Mad Dads, and then I worked for a program called Sankofa, and I was on the police department's weed and seed board for a while. After that, working in HUD for another 10 years. So you can see from my life's history, it's been about community service. It has been because I feel very strongly about that. That was one of the things why I thought about this board to be another layer for me to work with another proponent of being in community service. I started looking at some of the things because I didn't know what this board was for. So I did like most people do today. I Googled it. So I Googled it and found about 10 different types of boards throughout the state of Florida that do something that's similar to this. And through a learning process, I understand that what this board is about, one of the things that I feel strongly about, and that's being an American. And being an American is about, has a systems of checks and balances. That's what I'm coming to this board feeling that that's what this board is about. It's not about pointing fingers and saying that the police department is so wrong, or it's not about pointing fingers and saying that the citizens are so right. It's a balanced approach. That's what I'm here to the board, that's what I'm vying for to be on this board, is to bring that balanced approach. I could go and give a litany of tactical situations that I've been here, but it's 2.5 minutes, and I don't think all those situations would fit in that. I'm just happy to serve, and I'm glad to be here on the board. And again, Commissioner Reed, I thank you for appointing for this board. I will leave with just one comment. When I was on the Midtown Redevelopment Board, Commissioner Reed said something, she probably doesn't remember, it was 4 years ago. She said to me, shook my hand, and she said, do good. Now, because of the fact that I was raised as a gentleman, for me, that's a contract. So fast forward 4 more years later, now the other night, well, not the other night, but some time ago when she asked me to serve on this board, Commissioner Reed said the same thing, do good. So that's what I'm here to do, is to do good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Y'all have any questions for Mr. Lewis? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is Jonathan Rothstein.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Mr. Yeager, Mayor, Commissioner. I'm Attorney Jonathan Rothstein. Commissioner Delgado talked to me about this position. I've served on this commission before in the city of Ormond Beach. One of you early on said we needed to set the parameters of what this committee was going to do. And I'm not has this commission set parameters of what the board members are going to do that serve on this committee? Anyone?
Bob, you want to answer that?
Sure, we've adopted an ordinance which establishes the makeup of the board and what their responsibilities are.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, I wanted to do this because A, I enjoyed doing it for the city of Ormond Beach. Number two, the city needs people who are willing to do this and listen. From my experience of doing this before, what they would do, we had the chief in Ormond and the lieutenant, and then IA would have gone through, prepared the files. They would have already come to their findings, and they would give us, there were 6 of us at the time, and they would give us 2 to 3 files to review, each of us to present. We would discuss it, give our ideas to the chief as he sat there listening, and whatever, that was how it ended. Now, apparently, there is some controversy. Mr. Yeager knows me well. I know Mr. Yeager well. You asked Mr. Doran, do you sue cities? Do you sue counties? Yes, I'm going to come and tell you right up front. I sue the city of Daytona. I've sued the police department. It's gone both ways. You don't want somebody sitting on the committee who won't exercise and represent all parties in the action. I've also represented a heap of police officers, both for work comp, personal injury, pension board, and also a couple times when they were being disciplined. So I've done both sides. I've seen both sides. I have no preconceived notions. I do not think the fact that my law firm has on occasion filed lawsuits against the city, has any bearing on my ability to be fair, impartial, non-biased, and listen to both sides. The reports are going to be prepared. It's not like we're going out and doing our own investigation. We're going to get a complete IA folder. We'll read it. We'll talk about it. We'll express our opinions. And then the chief will exercise whatever he's going to do. So that is why I would like to serve on the board. I appreciate you inviting me here tonight.
All right. Do we have any questions of Mr. Rothstein?
How long did you serve on the Ormond Beach Board?
2 years.
Any special findings? Any experiences you'd like to share, or a particular experience?
Well, there were, actually, one of the cases I had to prepare and sit on was a corporal that I went to. I'm a local guy. I've been here since late 65, 66. So I've been here a long time. I had to sit and they gave me the case. They didn't know that I knew the corporal. We had grown up together, and what happened in that case is in Ormond, when they brought this fellow back to put him in the lockup, he had forgotten to take his weapon with him. And he had left his weapon in the jail cell or the lockup cell with the alleged criminal. And so, of course, remember, a lot of discipline that is done isn't necessarily police officers getting discharged. A lot of times, the chief back then, they would be fined 16 hours. They would lose 16 hours of pay, 32 hours of pay, 40 hours of pay. They would be sent back to get extra classes, things like that. I can only recall one incident where the police officer actually was fired. But remember, the police agencies use something called progressive discipline. So it's not like you make one mistake, you're gone. Each thing leads. So you might get a reprimand in your file. You might get 16 hours of lost pay. You might get sent for 40 hours plus some extra training. Finally, after you accumulate enough progressive discipline, as I call it, they're gone. I'm going to assume now, this is 2021, I'm going to assume that when you have a major mistake, that things are disciplined a little more quickly rather than letting things get out of hand. But as you heard the police officer from Chicago talk earlier today, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to sit on judgment when you're not there. It's Monday morning quarterbacking. So you have to have an open mind and look at what we would do is we would look at what the citizen said, what the evidence the citizen provided, what the police officer wrote in rebuttal. And then you would try to weigh somewhere in the middle what actually happened. Remember, a lot of incidents happen very, very quickly. 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Things get out of hand very, very quickly. If any of you walk down Seabreeze Boulevard from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, it can be quiet 1 second, and the next thing you know, all heck breaks out. And you've got total meltdown. I'm also, let me just digress 1 second. I'm also hoping that for us serving on this board, we can also maybe give the chief some recommendations. And I've told Aaron several times about some of these things. Beachside is where we want to so-called get people to come for tourists. Beachside is out of control. I walk 10 to 15 miles a day in this city every single day. And I heard somebody talk earlier, I don't remember his name, about Beachside. 2 days ago, I'm walking down A1A. The gift store on the corner of Seabreeze and A1A, somebody had taken a rock and had pounded his way through 2 glass panes. That's the tourist district. We talk about wanting to revitalize from International all the way to that Seabreeze. These are the things that we need help. You know, you want, maybe not only will we be sitting judgment, but I'm hoping the police chief will say, any suggestions, any parts of town that you see. So if you walk around this area, you will see the things that need, all the way around, need help. Any questions? Thank you.
I think it's important for us to remember that this board's responsibility is to review events that have already happened. And it is to give an additional set of eyes to what transpires between police officers and citizens. I respect both police officers and I respect citizens. Some officers are good, some are not. I believe the gross majority are good. Some citizens are good and some are not. And likewise, I believe the gross majority are good. But invariably, when these two interface and have an interaction, things transpire. Sometimes they are good and sometimes they are not. And to have eyes to look at it is not something that we should feel bad about or take lightly. It's important. This is just about greater transparency in the community. And as I said earlier, it's not to get anyone, but I do take some exception to the mindset that you know, that's what we do in society. And I've watched police actions when they had a split second to make a decision to save someone's life. And I've said this before, and I always went away knowing that it wasn't a job that I wanted. But nonetheless, there are many interactions that police have, and they're not all of that nature. You know, some are decisions that you make that you have time to make, and the decision is not necessarily a good decision. And we have to understand that, you know, so sometimes we take the extreme and we assume that because this is the extreme, that that's the only thing that you are reviewing. There's a lot of in between in that. And even in the extreme, there are protocols and procedures and expectations that they have to follow. And I don't lose respect for a person in an extreme situation when they have to make a decision that we question. But in our society, every job, everything that we do is called into question. You know, in terms, especially when we work for the public. And that's sort of what we do. So I don't want us as a commission to feel as though it's something wrong with having a board to review and to look at what folks do. If you're going to have a strong relationship between the police and the community, then you have to believe that it's okay to review. And 99% out of 100 times, we probably will come away and say that what we reviewed was within the purview of what we expect. And most times, even when we don't expect something, it doesn't mean necessarily that the person who made a mistake was a bad person or had a bad heart or had bad intentions. They may have had a bad day. They may have made a bad decision. They may have went outside of protocol for a moment or outside of themselves. In my own work as a school-based administrator, we have to make a lot of decisions a lot of times as it relates to children. And many times I go home, and I've gone home over the years, and I've thought, if people only knew, you know, because I see things, I've seen situations where kindergartners and first graders did things and they ended up restrained. And I often go home and then I've seen kids that age do things. So I understand the sentiment that of what you mean when you say, you know, your Monday night or Monday night quarterbacking something that happened on Sunday. But that's the nature of life. We do that all across the board. It doesn't make us bad or wrong for watching and reviewing. So as we make these decisions, I will say this, that when this board was established, the initial intent was to bring together a diverse group of people who we believed could impartially review what transpires in those interactions. And for the most part, I think we did pretty well. I think we did pretty well. I can't say that we didn't do well. Now, I can understand, and I'm just going to be transparent, it was never our intent to have people on the board who sued police. We said that from the very beginning. That was from the previous commissioner. He was sort of intent on that. But we have to also remember that the right of a person to sue, in this case, these cases will have already been decided. And rescue me if I'm wrong, they will have been decided not only by our chief, they will have been reviewed, I believe, by our manager, and by, is it FDLE, so they will have been reviewed by multiple layers. The purpose of this is to add another layer and to let citizens look at what police do, and to say that we're okay with our citizens seeing what our police do. And so I know I'm on a diatribe, but you know, I'm impassioned about this because I believe it's the right thing to do. Now, whether all of these people are the right people for this board, that's for us to decide. Yes.
You know, the thing is about, and speaking as an attorney, one of the things is just because you may sue someone in your professional capacity doesn't mean that you have a personal belief or bias. You're doing your job, or you're doing a job that a client has asked you to do. So I don't think that just because someone has taken a stance on behalf of a client, that should mean that they're have a bias one way or the other. I'm a criminal defense attorney 90% of the day, but I also represent police officers in internal investigations and matters like that. And I feel like I'm accepted on both sides of that because people understand my job is to represent the client. But when I leave that, the skill set that I have remains mine to use as I see fit. And some of these attorneys who, like Mr. Rothstein, who sued, you know, the police or the city, doesn't mean he's not able to evaluate a situation, listen, exercise good judgment, evaluate witnesses. Those are skills that he has regardless of who he is representing in a given moment. So I think that, you know, although people may have concerns, I don't think that any attorney would come here and use it as a bully pulpit or a place to gather business or do anything like that. The other thing that is that, like it or not, we're going to be reviewed by citizens in this day and age because of cameras and video footage. When police cameras became an ongoing thing and it became very common, I think there was concern that cameras were going to be bad for the police or something like that. And in fact, I don't know if the statistics bear this out, it turned out to probably be helpful because more often than not, people saw that the police response was appropriate. was, so I think maybe the same thing goes to this review board. There may be a concern that the findings will bear out a certain way. I'm confident they'll bear out in the opposite, and review board will show that by and large things are done the right way. Because I think by and large things are done the right way. So just like cameras were originally a source of some fear and trepidation, I think, but ultimately became a tool that helped the police, I think this review board has the same potential to be something that validates what we've seen happen. There was an incident recently in which I watched the video footage, of which we made the decision, the city did, to release very quickly. No sooner had the police acted with force to save their lives, they immediately dropped what they were doing and tried to save the injured person's life. Immediately they transitioned from, I'm being threatened, to I'm going to try to save this person's life in a split second. That's very admirable. That's very commendable. That shows that this was not about anything other than doing what they could do the best in that one moment. And once the threat was gone, they immediately tried to save this person's life. And to me, that's the kind of conduct that I'm glad was captured on camera, because you'd have a hard time believing that you could transition from this person's trying to harm me to now I'm going to do everything I can to save this person's life. And there was no hesitancy. It was instantaneous. It was one of the most moving things I've seen on video like that. So I think that we're going to probably find that by and large we see moments of like that. Then the review board, I think, could end up being a tool that helps the public relationship with the police and not be a damper on it. And I think that to the extent that you put people on the board who may ask hard questions or may seem like people who might have an axe to grind, the fact that they don't, and that it will show that this was a good investigation. If you want to truly exonerate someone, you put the people on there who don't like the person. I'm not saying that any of the applicants don't like the police. I'm saying that even if you put someone on there who has no problem suing the police and they come forth and they substantiate what happened, to me that's the highest level of endorsement. And I have confidence that all the applicants, regardless of their past, would do the best in each situation to find the right thing. So I think that we can put someone who's been a critic of ours, of the city, of the police on the board, and if anything, it will just make the board's outcome that much more viable, because no one can say people will put on there to give easy, quick answers. So I don't have any concerns with any of the applicants or their background, and nor do I think that this will end up being anything other than, for the most part, a way of showing that we're doing things overwhelmingly correct here when it comes to our interactions, with a few exceptions. So that's my thought, Mr. Mayor, and for what it's worth. I know that Mr. Rothstein was maybe somewhat of a controversial choice because of his past actions, but I stand behind my thought that he is a person on the review board, not his professional history per se.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would clearly like to have a workshop so we can determine actually why we have this board, what their duties are, and what, I'm new, so I'm not, I wasn't here when you guys did this. So, and coming from a family of law enforcement, including a son, I would like to know.
I want to, and I'm fine that you guys, if you all want to have that, but I think the best space for you to do that is with him.
But I still, listening to this,
Yeah.
We have one that wants to recommend things,
But they're going to be trained. They're going to be trained, and we've gone down this road. And I don't know, but the best place to me for you to learn that, I
understand.
I won't be able to share it with you.
I have talked to our city attorney and stuff, but I am concerned about some things regarding this board. I'm not saying we shouldn't have the board. We need to actually determine what their job is.
We've stated that, though, Commissioner
I understand what you are saying, but they are investigated, a police officer, when, actually, if they shoot their gun, they're off duty with pay. Do you get what I'm saying?
We know that.
So, and there's no findings. So what is the board? They have all the public records. They're going to be going through, seeing if they can find something after the case has been cleared. I just don't understand exactly what we are planning on doing with this board, because Daytona really doesn't have, take Toledo, Ohio. Okay, I have a lot of family in Toledo. Okay, there's a lot of crime there. Daytona, we don't have the crime like they do in some areas like Chicago or, so I just want to know exactly what this board is looking for.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't understand what that is going to accomplish for us to come together to discuss that. I really don't, because I feel like we've gone down this road. And so we're gonna basically have a conversation.
Well, then
Bob is going to explain to you what the procedures are and what the protocols are, and then we're gonna have a discussion. I've made my decision, and I'm not gonna change, because I've reviewed it, maybe twice. So I'm not gonna change, but if you guys, and again, I just don't like to have a meeting for the sake of
Having a meeting.
of just having a meeting. And I don't, we don't have to assemble this board tonight, but if you want to review it with him, or I don't know what else to do. I just am not, and then you want to come back and share with us where you want to see some changes or end this. I'm not likely to change, though, because we went through a hard sell. But I do want to give you a chance to feel as though, you've been heard. So if you have some strong opposition, because it sounds as though I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but if it's something that you're opposed to, say it.
Well,
and then we can
that's what
decide.
I'm trying to say. I am not clearly understanding what the board is actually doing. After they've had an internal investigation, they are coming back, looking at the records of the internal investigation, and then coming back to us saying, okay, I think that I found something. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to be more clear before we actually go forward.
You want to
Mr.
speak
Mayor.
to it? Because I don't, or you.
Is it possible that can we just not get a record, search for the record for the minutes of the meetings where we discussed this? And then those are all digitally recorded, right? Ms. Cantu can review those. Because I was, with the exception of her, everyone else in the same board discussed this on the record in front of the public. And I think we approached it the right way through the public record, through the sunshine. So I know that you weren't there for those discussions, but we must have a secretary or historian who can just pull up what minutes those were and tell us the dates of those discussions. Because I think
I can find those discussions. You won't have to do that. But, if you listen to them, we had different things they were looking at. The last man, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he's saying he would like to be able to go to the police and say, hey, this happened on Seabreeze. Can you check? I don't.
I understand all of that, but what you have to understand is they're going to have staff working with them. They will be within the parameters of what we've decided, and they will be taught.
According to this, if they have a problem, they are supposed to go to the city manager, not the chief, correct?
There's two functions for the Citizens Review Board. The first is to review certain closed IA files involving alleged misconduct of a police officer that involves either criminal conduct, excessive force, false arrest, or unlawful search. So once those investigations are closed by your Internal Investigations Division, that file is then turned over to the Citizens Review Board that then reviews the file with all the public records related to that file and makes a determination in their report as to whether they agree with the findings for discipline or they disagree with the findings for the discipline. So it's strictly a review board after the investigation is concluded. The second function of the Citizens Review Board is to review policies and procedures, and that can be done either on their own initiative or upon the direction of the police chief or this commission. So those are the two functions. They don't have the ability, as Mr. Rothstein stated, to suggest where crime should be fought, in a certain way. That's not the function of the board. It's strictly a review and advisory board.
Can I ask a question about that? So they come back and they say there's a policy. Is it a policy related to the incident that is before them that they'd like to review, or any policy that they decide, you know what, we're going to tackle this particular policy?
They are authorized under the ordinance to review any policy and make a recommendation through a report.
So that means every case they are going to go look at after, that's, okay, well, no, I'm talking about, he as well said case. So every case, you're saying after they get done doing whatever they do, not guilty, guilty, or whatever. So you're saying they're gonna come back, look at it, and see what they find, and then go back to the city manager and tell me, could you explain, when it goes back to the city manager, what exactly, is there gonna be some kind of, oh, okay, we found them guilty, so now they're gonna be reprimanded? I mean, I don't understand exactly what this is really solving. I mean.
You can only agree or disagree. They can only agree or disagree.
Right. And then, okay, say if we disagree, then,
If they disagree.
okay, if they disagree, they go back to the city manager.
Mike.
Okay, then
It's on.
what is he supposed to do?
What a city manager does. If he feels like he wants to take further actions and
Okay,
then
and
he-
what kind of further action would that be, Mr. Chisholm, please?
Well, it's very difficult to make that kind of a determination. You'd have to
Right.
see what the issue is. Anything that's a matter of law or associated with findings of the department, there are legal steps that have to be adhered to, and I'm not empowered really to counter any legal issue they have arrived at. And I can't direct them as it relates to that. I think it's a felony, if I remember my law a little bit. So it depends on what the issues are and what's coming back. I think if we're going to empower them to do anything, I think it has to be clear as to what that power is and what the limits are. And I don't think you have that clarity in what you got so
Right.
far.
And that's what I agree. That's why I think we need more discussion and a workshop.
Oh, may I interject my thought?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I don't think it's so much that we need clarity. My concern is, do they have clarity, which is the training I believe that the mayor has referred to. Now, let me commend you all, because this evening, now that I've had an opportunity to see and hear each of these applicants, I am very pleased with what has come before us, how they've represented themselves, how they've spoken, their backgrounds, their expertise. I did have some concerns, and I'll probably continue to have some concerns, because guess what? There is no perfect board. We're not perfect. So there's going to be some situations that may arise even amongst them. But I believe with the training and the staff that's assigned to them, because they won't just be a board out there doing whatever the heck they want to do, there's going to be some guidelines in order for them to conduct business. What I would like now at this point, we've heard from them, we've heard from each other, and others may want to speak, but I'd like to actually hear from our chief now that he's heard who the people are that might be the review board that's going to assist them. We want to look at it in a positive light. And Chief, if you're here, would you please come up and say a few words?
Good evening, Commission, Mr. Mayor, Jakari Young, Chief of Police. Thank you, Commissioner Reed, for the opportunity. So since my appointment as chief on November 6th, I have talked a lot about partnering with the community. I'm very big on a partnership with this community because I believe that partnering with the community coupled with transparency is the key to bridging any gap that may exist between the police department and the community that we serve. I truly believe that. So as it pertains to this board, I am looking at this board as just another partnership with the community. Simply as that, simply put. And I want it to be successful. And I think it will. To be honest, being a police officer here for the past 20 years, being in command at this agency since 2014, with the level of transparency that already exists amongst police leadership, there are times when I feel like this entire community is already a police review board. To be honest, I mean, I get phone calls like Mr. Rothstein referenced, wanting to be able to give the chief suggestions. I can't go a day without someone calling my phone or texting me. I have no idea who they are, didn't give them my phone number, but I get a phone call or a text message, and it could be, hey, chief, car number 5011 is speeding. You need to look into that. These are the types of calls that I get. This entire community, in reality, is a police oversight board. We answer to NAACP, the Faith Organization, every community meeting, Black Clergy Alliance. Everybody essentially is a police review board, in my opinion. Before Norma Joe passed, she was the police review board all by herself. She legitimately was. So, and then as I listened to this board, you know, I had my reservations about some of them just based on what I read, but I only knew of one prior to tonight. But I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable moving forward with the board. And like I said, my department isn't perfect. There is no perfect department. There may be an issue or two that comes up. And I can tell you myself and my current command staff, we get it. We know the times that we're living in. And I think we may not agree on everything, but I think the overwhelming majority of any case that comes before that board, we'll all be on the same page because we know what we're dealing with. And my officers know I'm working really hard to set the bar. And if they're not a good fit for this department, they won't be able to continue to wear the badge. That's just where we're at. I have very candid conversations with all of my police officers, and they may do well in other cities, but they may not just be a good fit for this city. And we have these conversations. So I really don't have any qualms moving forward about this board. I've even had the opportunity last week on February 22nd was Ormond's Police Review Board. They invited me to attend their review board. And it's quarterly, just as this board would be. They have 5 members. They serve a term of 2 years each. I know ours would be 3 years, but it runs smoothly. And their board has been in place since 2008. So after my conversations with Chief Godfrey and how their board runs, ours, based on the ordinance, is very closely aligned to what Ormond has in place. And just again, really don't have very many concerns. My goal right now, we're on the crux of the 80th anniversary of Bike Week. So I'm just trying to make it through these next 2 weeks. And then I'll reach out to the board. We can sit down and have a meet and greet. And we can move forward from there. But on the whole, I'm just not, really concerned moving forward. I welcome it. Like I said, I think they're going to be an asset, and we're going to make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If I had the gavel, I'd hit it. That's all right with me. If the chief says he's good, I'm good too.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm fine if he's fine.
And I think it really is a great opportunity for the community to feel involved in how they are policed and the community service of the police department. And it gives the police department the opportunity to show that they have nothing to hide. They feel good about what they do. And I feel good about our police department. I do truly believe that Daytona Beach has the best police department in the country. I might be biased, but and I've read about 2 or 3 other really good police departments that I really admire the way their leadership. But I do believe that Daytona Beach is far up there with training, our de-escalation techniques that before the chief put in place, that many other cities are taking notice of, and they too are trying to adopt those de-escalation techniques. So thank you, Chief, for that, and I really think that this will be a good thing for the community, to bridge the community with their department. And people who have, some people who have a distrust of the police department, this will be a good opportunity for them to feel good that there is going to be another set of eyes that's out there. So.
Any other comments? Okay. Commissioner Cantu?
I'm fine as long as the chief is fine with who we have, I'm totally fine then.
And I understand that.
I'm sorry, I support the board. so
And I
understand where it comes
I
from.
sense that. But I don't want anyone in this town to go out and sense that I don't support the police.
Oh, I'm not saying
You
you
know,
do,
but I know, and
I have a
yeah,
son in law
yeah,
enforcement
you
too,
know,
that's been there quite a
you know.
long time too.
So, but I understand. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Was there any more public comment?
No more public comment? Okay,
No one else had signed up to speak.
well, we have a slate. We don't have a need to have a meeting. Do you all wish to vote tonight to conclude this matter?
Yes, I think so.
I do. I'm
Yeah.
ready to move on.
You want a
Okay.
motion?
Okay.
All right, so in summary, I do need to find out from Commissioner Delgado. So,
Let's leave it as is.
Rothstein?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so,
They just voted slate, Betty.
okay.
Did
All
we
right,
agree
so
that?
do I need to do a summary?
She has a question.
Right, sorry, did we agree that they were going to have a kind of a workshop just for them? Did we agree to that? That they're going, the
How-
candidates?
Some kind of training.
My plan was, when the board is constituted, I would attend their first meeting and go over basic public records law, sunshine law, go over their duties and functions under the ordinance. Of course, they have an advisor for the technical aspects, and be aware that they're required to go through a certain amount of training as well prior to constituting the board. So we'll have to establish a use of force training program for them. They have to attend the Citizens Academy, the Police Department section, and whatever other training the manager sees fit.
Was there a ride-along in that?
Yes,
Yes.
they're right along.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, police ride-along.
And I think at the time we decided the ride-along would not just be a once-type situation. I was advocating that it could be during a time when it was actually busy, so we could actually see what truly goes on, not just sort of a neighborhood little ride-along. Okay.
Okay.
So may we have a motion to appoint the slate?
So moved.
I'll take a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner Traeger. Do we have any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item 10D, it's the City Manager's Office First Step Shelter Board of Directors appointment resolution.
This agenda item is to appoint one member to the Board of Directors for the First Step Shelter, Inc. This is a recommendation by Mayor Henry, and he would like for Joan Campanella to be appointed.
And I do have, she's here to speak.
Okay. Joan?
Good evening. My name is Joan Campanaro, and I will be brief. I moved to Daytona Beach in 2008. 721 Pelican Bay Drive, sorry. Daytona Beach, Florida, 32119. I moved to Daytona Beach in 2008 after retiring from the Army as a Colonel Army nurse, and have been very active in working to help the homeless community since arriving here. Spent a lot of time working to get the shelter built. I've talked to many of you during the process. I am still actively volunteering at the shelter, doing a lot of HR work for them, helping them with HR stuff. I also support them financially. I go to all the board meetings. I am working, I see my role as both a faith member, all caps, and a faith member, and would like to, I feel like I could be an asset for the board. And I'm here if you have any questions at all. Thank you.
Well, let me add that there's just a few people that have been, since the inception of the idea of a shelter, who have been any more intimately involved with the shelter than Joan. There's no aspect of care and concern for the board and for the First Step Shelter that she has not touched, from her personal treasure to her heart. And we need her to help extend our reach to the faith community, they were instrumental in helping shape the board, but we need to continue to help with fundraising, volunteers, things that she'll be very good at, and she'll be a great asset to the board, not just because of her heart and passion, but also because of her talent and the connections that she's continuing to make. And so I hope that you all will support her, and I appreciate you in all that you've done.
Thank you, Mayor.
And for the record, it's a resolution appointing one member to serve on the Board of Directors for the First Step Shelter, Inc., providing that that person appointed serve at the pleasure of the City Commission and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions or comments?
And I have no additional speakers.
No additional speakers. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Welcome, Joan. We're in the sunshine now.
Excuse me, sir?
So we're in the sunshine, so it means no more talking and
I
texting
understand.
about the shelter.
I understand, sir.
All right.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could tack on here, I need to alert the commission that although I've been with the First Step
Oh,
Shelter
God.
since their inception in creating their bylaws and everything involved with getting them up and running, my time has come to an end according to your authorization for my representation of that board. So you can extend that tonight, or we can talk about other options, but as of today, I'm no longer authorized to represent them under the previous resolution.
Are you willing to?
Yes, of course. I enjoy
to-
representing the
move to
board, and of course, they do good
Mr. Mayor,
work.
can we talk
Wait,
about that
wait,
for
wait, wait.
1 second?
Can you find me someone?
I'd like, I feel, I've always thought there was a bit of concern from a conflict of interest
Not a
standpoint that
conflict, but-
we have Jagger serving two kind of masters, for lack of a better word. And I'm trying to reach out to Jim Rose, and who's pseudo-retired, and see if he would be interested in volunteering to be a legal advisor. And I'm going to talk to some other people in the legal community. Maybe I can persuade some of them to volunteer. But I think if we do extend it, maybe just on a temporary basis, just for,
Just extend it until you find me someone.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, 6
well-
weeks or something like that, 8 weeks, whatever. I don't know what the process would be about getting someone to replace him, but I think we should definitely start actively looking to get someone who doesn't have an obligation to the city commission as well.
And my concern has always been, how are you paid for this, sir? I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to ask the question. I mean, are we paying for the First Step Shelter Board for your services? Is
No,
the
we
city
just
of
loan him.
Daytona Beach paying for your services? How does that work for the city of Daytona Beach?
There's no remuneration one way or the other. It's just part of my duties.
He's
But if you
paid
work-
the same way that I'm paid. He's a volunteer.
Are you volunteering?
No, it's not.
Or are you
but he's
doing that
working.
on?
He's working for the city. But, I mean, this is what we've done. We don't have another person, so you guys, I don't know. Let's extend it and try to find another board member and maybe help me to find someone. 'Cause I don't have anyone.
And I'll talk with Mr. Jagger about
I'm just telling you.
who might be, what kind of skill set would be useful and all that.
No. We have a full board now.
I'll take it upon myself to try to get some names or some candidates for you for the next, not this, like 2 meetings from now.
That'd be great.
I'm just curious, as some of the others, this has always been my little bone of contention, is that we contribute so much for the residents, even in the guise of Mr. Jago represents the residents also, and what we've done and what we've built, and the issues we've had to endure publicly, the slings and arrows we've endured, and the kitchens we've put in, and so much that we've done, and we continue to do. Are there any other attorneys from any other cities on your board members? Do they know any other attorneys from their cities who would like to volunteer their time? Do they have any staff members from their cities that they can volunteer? Or
All of
is it
that-
us?
All of that I understand, and I'm not gonna, and they know. The Bible tell you, I tell them, I remind them that it costs for the city to hire him. So I say all of these things, but I also want to remind you all, when you look at the report, just look at the reports and who uses the shelter. So you know, it's not easy. I have to maintain keeping these municipalities glued. So, you know, because I don't dream of serving on the board forever. It's almost like being on another commission in a lot of ways. It's not quite as demanding, but it's quite demanding. So I understand that sentiment, but when you look at the reports that I receive, the rest of the cities aren't using the shelter like we are. And it's just the bottom line. It's not even a fraction. So, and it's not that I want to keep him, because I would like to release him, but I need some help. Just get me someone that is willing to help, and then, you know, I'll be happy to release him. But I'm not going to be on the board without having good counsel. You know, I'm not going to sit there and say I'm going to make decisions without, I depend on him to help.
Let's tag him before we release him back to the wild, for sure.
Yeah.
I would request a motion to extend my services, say for 60 days, and I'll prepare a resolution. In that resolution, we also waive any potential conflicts between the two entities.
I'd second that motion.
Well,
Who was the first?
Who's the first? You motioned it already?
I motion that he be continued.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Okay, we'll take that. Motion from Commissioner Traeger, second from Commissioner Delgado.
And of course, we have to ask for public comment.
And
Do
public
any
comment?
members of the public like to speak on this issue?
Okay. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 10E, which was added to the agenda tonight, the Development Administrative Services Bethune-Cookman University Special Event Resolution. A resolution authorizing Bethune-Cookman University to conduct certain special events within the BCU campus during Bike Week 2021 in accordance with Section 5.4.C.4 of the City Land Development Code, establishing conditions and providing an effective date.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Reed, Wildcat, and a second from Commissioner Delgado.
I do have one speaker on this item, Mr. Johnny Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Johnny Moore, and I come here today representing the alumni chapter, the Volusia County Alumni Chapter of the great Bethune-Cookman University. I think it's a great idea that Bethune-Cookman is now getting itself involved in the community. I'm a 1980 graduate of Bethune-Cookman. There was a different feel then where the school and the community worked together. They had events that both the community and the students attended safely. And if you allow us to have this, one, the school has committed to making this a safe and efficient event. They're going to have the hand sanitizers, the porta potties, all those things, and keeping social distancing so that it is a wonderful chance for the students to be able to safely enjoy Bike Week as opposed to being stockaded in their rooms to try and keep them safe. So by the city allowing Bethune-Cookman to be an active partner in this, they can then hopefully make it a great event as well.
Thank you,
My
sir.
comment.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that was my only speaker, Mr. Mayor.
All right, commission comments. Who did we start with?
Did we have to do a vote and?
Oh, we didn't finish the vote? I'm sorry. Guess
And
I'm
I'm
ready to
sorry, who was
get
the-
moving.
who was
We
the
have a
motion? Who was
motion, we have a second, we've heard from the public.
You were the move? With Delgado, okay.
No, Traeger moved.
Okay.
No, you moved.
The
Reed
Wildcat.
and then Delgado, that was the previous one on Traeger. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Uh,
And we started with Delgado.
Oh, he-
Commissioner comments.
Nothing for me tonight.
all right. Commissioner?
Okay, so I have a couple of things. First off, last week I asked if we could take a look at some incentives or grants, and I'm wondering if we have an update from Mr. Berger about anything. Did he leave? Is he coming back? We were talking about if they were working on any kind of incentivizing or having grants or anything like that for the Seabreeze area. It was in my notes right here from last week. That came up, okay, just checking. Also, where are we on the right-of-way notices with regard to when people are vacating land? I think we were discussing it at some point.
We've been working with Planning Department and
Okay.
Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris, I don't exactly know where we are in the drafting stage.
Mr. Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager. We're working with legal to not only have better posting signs, larger posting signs, and then mimic the process that the county used, but with the additional aspect of notice to adjacent property owners, and we're internally discussing how far the notice should go. Typical notice is 300 feet, and be from any edge of a property, so that could be a substantial area, but in some cases, particularly on riverfront properties, they may be quite a bit larger. The 300 feet may not really span that much property, so that people would be advised from an area. So we've discussed how to do appropriate notice, but that's the rough sketch of what we're working on to mimic the county process with posting the properties, larger signs that previously have been used, but added to that, notice to adjoining property owners within a given distance. And it's kind of an internal debate as to what we think the appropriate distance is. I think we'll probably settle on 500 feet from the edges.
And is that something the city is going to be doing, or something that the two parties involved, the particular person asking for the vacation to happen, the vacating to
No,
happen?
ma'am, it would be something that the city would do to revise the procedure that we have so that you've got a public hearing process, notice, opportunity to be heard, and really revise how it previously has.
Okay.
I think your question might have been whether or not the applicant would be responsible
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the notice.
It's my mistake.
So first, we've got to change the process. Secondarily, then, we have to deal with the notice aspect of it, and ordinarily what we would do there is have notices taken from the clerk's office. They actually prepare the list, get a list for our purposes of record. And usually it's mailed by regular mail. Certified mail, a lot of times people just don't pick it up. They just don't go. So the object is to give notice, and if you have a list and you see an affidavit that in fact the notices have been sent, the letter's going to come to your door, and won't be something where you go like, I'm not going down to pick that up.
And so the city is becoming responsible for this now, so we're paying for that?
The applicant is responsible.
No, we coordinate, the applicant has to send it.
Okay,
We get the list from them.
okay, that's what I was concerned about. All right, thank you so much, sir. Okay,
Simply review it.
okay, super, thank you. The next thing is, in our packets, I wanted to understand why we received this. It was called the City Funding in Midtown Area. Could you explain to me what this is about, sir, please?
It's a list of all projects that have been implemented in the city of Daytona Beach, probably beginning somewhere around 2004, I think it was. And so it shows you there's about $48 million worth of projects that have been completed within the Midtown area.
And then how were those projects funded? Was that part of CRA funding?
They're
or was it?
funded by many different ways, like the $18 million from Orange Avenue was $1.6 million from the county. There was some state money in this one, and then money from our utilities as well as our city funds and
So-
CRA funds.
So if I'm understanding this, we're saying that we've invested, the city has spent $49 million so far into the Midtown area. Is that correct?
It's 48, 455, 954.
Okay. And so for anybody at home, it's public record. We have things like parks, we have aquatic centers, we have drainage areas, we have streetscapes, Midtown Educational Center, neighborhood stabilization programs. I mean, we have a host of road work, community services, lift stations, general improvements, quite a bit.
Campbell Pool.
Campbell Pool, which is again doing some work now. And again, did any of this money come from the CRA funds, any portion?
Some of it CRA is normally a combination of CRA grants or city funds,
Okay.
general fund.
And then at the top of your head, do you have any idea how much is actually in the CRA that we get each year from the ad valorem taxes?
No, I don't recall exactly what that
It's about 297,000. So that's what we have in there, right? But over the course of time, $49 million has been expended in the general area. So I was really curious about how much money we had actually been investing in the area over time. All right, that's one thing. The other thing was, so given that, so this is city combination, with the CRA has become a little bit of a hot hot button of late, right? CRA funding, how it's used, et cetera. What kinds of efforts have been funded in the past, let's say 5 years, just from CRA funds, where they go to the CRA, the 297,000, say, this program was funded there. What was the programs? Do you remember what they were at all, sir, or anything like that?
I don't.
So I'm kind of remembering some stuff like any kind of training programs, anything like that funded? Anything coming out of the CRA at all? Nothing like that? No? I wasn't sure if we had anything like that going, if we had any
Almost all of our projects have funding from
different
multiple
sources. Okay.
So it'd be very hard to say
Yeah.
how much is from where.
In general, for me personally, and maybe I could speak with whoever does the CRA stuff, I kind of would like to know what are the parameters of where we can spend CRA funds and how we can spend them. What kind of programs or what the parameters are of how the money is spent. I have a curiosity about it. So do you happen to know broadly how it can be used?
Broadly, the purpose of the CRA, when you sit, as that entity, is to eliminate blight and increase the tax rolls for the districts. So in that regard, you adopt programs for each of the districts. And so whatever funding you approve has to be consistent with the requirements of state law under 163 and also with your adopted program for that redevelopment area. So those are your guidelines.
And then I always like to share with the commission. I start to ask questions in a particular area. There's usually a reason. It's because some things have come up to me or some ideas have kind of been floated or I've been doing some research on some things. And hopefully you can contribute to the thinking process because we all see it from different perspectives, which is why we're all here. I'm kind of curious as to how we can start attracting small businesses to our different corridors. There's got to be a way that we can come up with some sort of idea of bringing businesses here, not big ones, not the manufacturing. Team Volusia has that. We have corporations, we have people working on that. But just in terms of bringing restaurants, so I know that I joined the Hispanic Chamber for the sole purpose of when I speak with them, inviting them to come here, and now they're having 2 events in Daytona Beach at 2 of our venues. So things like that. I'm looking for ways that we can bring businesses that are restaurant-based, have an interest in restaurant-based business to the different corridors. Because I think that we could do really well with those. The shops are small enough that conversions would be really easily done, I think, and that's why I'm looking at that. So if you have any ideas or any research, or if anybody's listening, if anybody wants to open a business, contact me. I'd be interested in having a conversation with you. And a particular business, entertainment and restaurants, I think those would be helpful. And so those are my thoughts for the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Cantu?
Yeah, I just wanted to get an update to see where we are with Minto putting in the sidewalks and if the county is in agreement, because I'm getting a little bit of conflicting stories.
Well, the city's been in touch with the county concerning the sidewalks, and my instruction to staff is sidewalks will be installed as required by our code. Okay. And I don't know of any deviation from that. I know the county is supportive of our efforts as it relates to those requirements for sidewalks.
You mean sidewalks in the neighborhood, inside of?
No,
Or is that from the
Tournament all the
Yeah.
way to Publix on LPGA.
Okay.
So specifically, Commissioner, we're reviewing Part 6 of Minto. The requirement in staff comments from before your inquiry and before Bayberry's was the sidewalk should go from Publix to Tournament, which is effectively Timber Creek to Tournament. And in the course of it, I happened to be able to speak to both the county traffic engineer and the county development engineer separately as respects county's support for sidewalk. The sidewalk would have to be in county right-of-way along LPGA. They both said the county is supportive. They just didn't have money to build the walk. The construction is actually being required as a part of the plat. The developer is complaining that there's changes in elevation and so on, which is true. They'd have to build the sidewalk through those changes in elevation. That's a normal part of the construction process. And pursuant to the manager's instructions, we're going to tell them as part of that plat, they have to build that sidewalk.
Okay, and so county is in agreement.
The 2 gentlemen I spoke to are as high as I know to go below the county manager, and they both said yes.
Okay.
And that was me personally speaking to them.
Okay, and that's just on one side of the road, not on the other side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's correct.
Now, I do have a question as well. November 2016, I guess, the sidewalks were passed from Williamson to Clyde Morris on Bevel Road. And I know we are 100% done, I guess, with the project, but it's a federal, and I guess state only wants to pay half, and it's supposed to be sent to FDOT. Where are we at with that?
We're in discussions with the FDOT. That was a multi-million-dollar project, and the original agreement was we were going to do the design, they were going to do the construction, and they now have come back and said, well, they only pay for half of the construction. So we're trying to make them do what they have agreed to do from the very beginning.
Okay,
And we're not through that.
okay. And last thing, I do have, you're done, thank you. I do have some great news to report. We needed some sidewalks for over a decade, about 1/8 of a mile of sidewalk on Clyde Moore, starting at Pine Lake subdivision all the way to Big Tree intersection, for children to ride their bikes and walk to get to school safely. And 2 short runways for easier access for the VO train stops. This project took a lot of people that were involved. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm, for calling the county, and Jim Morris, because we found out it was a city, it was in city limits, but the county was responsible for it. So I just want to say thank you for all the hard work, because they're halfway done. So,
Nothing like getting new sidewalks in a neighborhood that were in a place where they were long needed.
yes, they
I can remember that when I was first a commissioner on Brentwood. For years, there was no sidewalk, but because of the board that you sit on, and we were shovel-ready, we were able to get that sidewalk done. All of these things start to work together, but it's a good feeling when something comes together. Congratulations.
I just wanted to add, as it relates to some of the projects, I think I mentioned this before. The last call that Mr. Holmes, I think, and I were on, or Mr. Waller and I were on, it was, they were saying that because of the reduction in car usage and travel, that we were going to see a shortfall in some of the funds that were coming down. So I'm not quite sure how that impacts us overall as a city, but understand that that is going to be coming. A project on East ISB is still on track, because I keep making sure that we're still going forward on that, and we are. But some of the projects in the future, we have to really pay attention and have some funds on hand in case we have to start subsidizing more than we thought we needed to. All righty?
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yeah.
That's it. Commissioner Henry?
No comments tonight, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Henry, just a little report for you on the sidewalk on 6th Street.
Oh, that's big.
All the way back to Nova Road. We're in the process of, the design of that, and we have funds set aside for that construction.
Oh, good. That's one of the areas I wanted to tour with you when we go on our tour in the next week.
Yes.
That and perhaps some sidewalks in Madison Heights, which is long overdue and much needed, if that's a possibility.
Okay.
So, but we'll do that when we go on our ride. Thank you.
Commissioner Reed?
Mr. Chisholm, where are we on the stadium improvements?
I don't think they're under construction yet, but we've awarded the contract for that, so it'll be underway shortly, I'm sure.
Okay, very good. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Traeger?
Good night, everyone.
And I have many things to say, but good night. I will say them at a later time.
Good night.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up our public comment forum. Our first speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Patricia Hurd.
You can hear me when you walk. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, sir.
Huh? John Nicholson, Daytona Beachside. Two things. I was a bit hesitant and leery when the Police Review Board was mentioned and first brought up. You knew what was happening at the time. But the board, if you listen to those people, there's a tremendous amount of depth and breadth of their background. They are really gung-ho on it, and I believe balanced. I think both our police officers and our residents will feel confident with them. I'm especially happy with the two women who have a background in juvenile justice. We absolutely need that. Secondly, I was at the county council yesterday, and our special magistrate happened to walk to the podium and make a comment about the short-term rentals. And while he was speaking, he said, you got to realize that Daytona Beach is going through a renaissance, and we don't want anything to damage what's happening on the beach side, which is what I wanted to bring up and I brought up last week. We have to find some way of promoting our beach side.
John,
Yes.
who said that?
Pardon?
Who said that?
The special magistrate.
Oh, the special magistrate. Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead.
And I had mentioned it the last time we were here, and I want all of you to realize that it is happening over there. I understand we have 40 properties, vacant lots on the ocean, which is astronomical. It is just unbelievable that we would have that many empty ones. But along with that, we have 40 properties that within the last 5 years have been renovated or in the process now of being renovated. And we have 4 properties in which new buildings are going to be built. All right? The Renaissance parking garage is going in. The apartments off of Driftwood are going in. A building next to my house is being torn down and being rebuilt. So there's a lot going on over there. And on the 19th, asking you guys to come to the meeting that the plaza is having. Especially, I would ask Mr. Delgado to show up since it's in your district. I'm asking also Juanita and Stacy to come and take a look. And Ruth, I know you're going to be there. You're always there. But it's something that is going on. They want to redevelop the thing, and there's so much possibilities there because once that goes, and hopefully ISB will follow. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Patricia Hurd, and on deck is Sean Collins.
I don't know why I didn't invite you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm here because I am really confused. I purchased a festival permit on private property. Festival permit. The permit was passed and purchased at $1,200 to be used on my property. All guidelines have been met, other than I found out yesterday that participants in the Second Avenue Plaza Festival also need to pay $600 each to participate. I'm having a festival, and my participants got to pay someone else to participate in my festival. I really don't understand. I'm located in a redevelopment area where we have been affected by COVID-19. That means loss of jobs, no income to pay rent, mortgage, and maybe not to eat. These participants are trying to make ends meet, and I'm only trying to help them as I have done in the past. And they are helping themselves while they are trying to wait on a stimulus check to come in sooner or later. I did not apply for a bike week permit. I applied for a festival permit. I do not change dates or anything. Also, if I were having this festival at my home and using the empty lots next door, are you telling me that they would have to get a permit to participate? Please explain the difference in a festival permit on these dates and bike week, $600. My people never have paid $600 for a permit. I have always been
Thank you,
able
ma'am.
to pick up their, so they would do that. Thank you. I didn't hear it running my mouth.
Oh, okay. Your time's up. Is this is what this is about?
Mr. Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager, I've given you paperwork that was asked you prepared, and this is really a repeat of last year. Mrs. Hurd's paying the same or being charged the same as before. Has objected to it before. This is a private event on her property in association with the SAMA Festival. SAMA does have slightly different treatment. They've been with the event for quite some time. This is a replication of what Mrs. Hurd has previously been charged, and it's just a continuation. And I would say there are no discounts for any of the vendors on any of the events, whether Main Street or Second Avenue, MMP. And Bethune-Cookman also has fees associated with theirs. And everyone is being treated the same.
Is there a difference between a festival and a bike week?
Sorry.
I was
Well, hers
asking,
not
is there a
first
difference?
She's trying to call it a festival. It isn't a festival. It's a private activity on her property. And as the bike week events go, that's how we charge for those. This is a repetition of what you heard last year, which is why you have documentation attached from last year, which is the latter part of the package.
Ms. Hurd, your time's up.
The money she's referring to is held and credited towards her fees this year.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Collins, and on deck is Frederick Brown.
I can't help you no more, Ms. Hurd. You she got along with a commissioner, she might get some help.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Sean Collins. I'm a member in halfway decent standing on the Midtown Redevelopment Board. 2 weeks ago tonight, on the 17th of February, the Midtown Board members, Valencia Stubbs, Pierre Lewis, and I gave the Commission a presentation on issues and concerns the Midtown Board has determined can only be resolved through actions on the part of the City Commission/CRA. At the conclusion of our presentation, I committed to drafting and eventually forwarded a memo to the city manager that outlined our issues and provided a series of 5 resolutions. And those resolutions are namely that you require that any project financed by the city control funds targeted specifically or indirectly for the Midtown area be brought before our board for our review, comment, and recommendation. Number 2, that the Midtown Board regularly identifies projects, microphone went off, that for potential funding that will eventually be forwarded to the Commission, CRA throughout the year, as well as prior to the adoption of the city's capital improvement program. Number 3, provide a mechanism process where there's constant and continuous communications between the Midtown Board and the Commission/CRA. Number 4, that the Midtown Board review and make recommendations concerning the Midtown community redevelopment areas budget prior to the final decision by the commission/CRA. And finally, number 5, that the commission CRA directs the staff to honor and abide by the Midtown Board's adopted rules and procedures, namely our Midtown bylaws. Now, before and since that meeting 2 weeks ago, I've had the pleasure to meet with the following individuals, agencies, and organizations. And without going through the specific dates, back in November, I met with Ms. Louis Bolenbach, who's the executive director for the River to Sea Metropolitan Plan Organization. The following week, I met with Mr. Keith Kennedy, who's the vice president at Daytona State. The following week after that, I met with Mr. Byron Brooks, who's the county manager for Orange County. I had a call with Ms. Terrell Bates, the executive director for the Daytona Beach Housing Authority. I met with Mr. Kyle Duggan,
Thank you,
who's
sir. Your time has expired.
Can I continue, please?
Your time is up, but go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, it'll be very briefly, sir. Thank you. I met with Mr. Kyle Duggan, who's the community redevelopment area manager for Winter Park. I met on yesterday and actually Friday with a talk with actually a man by the name of Robert Cruz, who runs an apprenticeship program at Daytona State for future electricians. I met in early fall with the mayor. I graciously met, and I met with the commissioner, Commissioner May, on Friday, and I had a conversation with her today. She gave me 4 hours of her time, and I appreciate that. With all that said, here's what I'm asking for respectfully. That you direct the staff to draft the resolution and our changes to the Land Development Code that will grant the Midtown Board their request. And finally, that this be placed on the agenda at your last meeting of this month, or at the latest, the first meeting in April, for you to make a discussion and eventually make a formal adoption of that resolution or Land Development Code change.
Thank you. I want to say that I received your email and regret not responding to calling you. I'm aware that the manager has also received the correspondence. He has not formulated what he feels is a cogent response yet, but he is going to respond to you. I have opinions about the outline, but I think that's something at the appropriate time for all of us to weigh in on. I don't agree with each assessment. I'll talk with you off the record as to what I agree with and what I don't, but I agree with some of it, and I do want to be able to move forward. But I do want to acknowledge that I was in receipt of that. And so, thank you.
If I could just ask for a time certain, that's all, if nothing else.
I don't
time
have
certain on
that
this.
at this moment, and I'm not going to commit to that. I want him to respond to you, and then, we can put this on our agenda, but I don't have a time certain.
Is there a time certain for him to respond to me? It could be 6 months.
Well,
from now.
he's not, I'm not going to give him that, but I don't have a problem with getting it done within the next 6 weeks, but I haven't fully vetted it in my own mind either. So so I'm not prepared to weigh in on it, but do you all, I don't want to be the only one to state on it, but I'm stating my perspective, yes.
And, I did speak with Mr. Constant. I said I agree with the mayor. There were some points that I agreed with and some I was unsure about, which we discussed. I mentioned that to you. But I will tell you that I brought this up to the city manager, and right now he is crafting a response with regard to it that is, that I think will address some of the concerns from the position of legally what the board can and cannot do from what we have in place right now, but it's being addressed. I will tell you that it is being addressed right now.
Right, and I know it brief. I just understand that, one person's soon is another person's a year from now. I know how this works, and I'm just saying it doesn't take that long. If you're talking about 6 weeks, I mean, with all due respect, there's no way I'm going to still be on the board 6 weeks from now if we've not had a response. And I'm not drawing a line in the sand. It doesn't take that long.
I didn't hear what you said.
You were saying that it could take up to 6 weeks to get a response.
No, I
I don't
don't.
know how long it takes for him to put it on the agenda. I'm not prepared to even vote on that, but I'm not giving a time certain, and I'm just not going to do that here tonight. But I'm saying to you, some of those things I agree with, I want to really vet them. I want to really sink my teeth into them. And I don't feel comfortable just standing here. You were here 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to give you a time certain tonight. I'm not comfortable doing that. It's not where I am in my process of deliberations. Maybe someone else is, but I'm not there. I haven't arrived there. And
So allow us to chew on it.
Excuse me?
Allow us to chew on it and to get back with you.
Well, this is my last statement. I sent that memo out the next day, Thursday. Something as simple as, I got your memo, I'm chewing on it.
Mm-hmm.
That
We
doesn't
got your
take long.
memo, we're
You got
chewing on it.
1,000 people that work for him. At courtesy, I know how this works. Just a simple memo, a phone call.
Well,
I got your memo.
I don't begrudge you that.
Yeah.
I do not begrudge you that. That's a fair assessment.
Yes.
Because an acknowledgement of it, but I feel that way even for myself.
Yes.
Because I'd certainly read it more than once. And I didn't acknowledge it. It wasn't to ignore you. My intent was to call because that was a request that I received also. Just didn't happen. But an acknowledgement, I understand the professional courtesy and respect that.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is Malcolm Williams.
Thank you once again for allowing me the opportunity to speak before the City Commission. My name is Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge, Daytona Beach. I am once again appealing to the City Commission to do the right thing. The right thing is to rescind the decision of the 8U consent agenda item of May 20th. That item was the giving away of public land, which belongs to the public forever. I am very passionate about this. I am not going away. I am also being joined by many, many citizens. There are letters that have gone out, and you will hear shortly from them, and you will get and I apologize, I had planned a more formal presentation tonight. However, I am dealing with a tragedy in my family right now. I have a family member on life support. And with that said, I just want to say the next most passionate thing to me is being here as a citizen to fight for the rights of the citizens of Daytona Beach to preserve the public land that was granted to us back in 1926. Why I'm asking the City Commission to rescind this is that you were given false information. It is all posted online. You're welcome to read the documents. I had planned to each give you copies to refresh your memories. But when you look at the staff report, it is in error. There are two key points in there that they said that they reviewed. And one of the key ones was the fact that the property was not in disagreement with the city's comprehensive plan. If you read the comprehensive plan, dig down 122 pages deep in section 7-2, item 1.3.2, it says that the land will be provided for citizens' access to the waterways every mile. This is the last public access on the entire beach side. And I know I want to thank Commissioner May for at least visiting it. I know I talked to you, Mayor, about visiting it. I don't know if your schedule allowed it. I had hoped that Commissioner Traeger, because it is her district, would attend. But you need to see the last piece of public land which you gave away.
Sir, I just want you to know that I have been in communication with representative for the property, and they intend to work with you and the residents to ensure your access. And that's, that's all that I feel comfortable in saying, but they do intend to do that. And so I hope that some positive resolution to this will come in the near future.
It's not a question of right-of-way. The question is, who owns the land? The city has given land, and it's not, and the other part of the issue, which we ran out of time to talk about, is that it's not in compliance with state policy either. And I have sent some of that to Commissioner May for review. I'll be glad to send it to Rusty under Section 253 of the state law regarding public lands. Okay? And so it's not just about right-of-way or being able to have access. Okay? Because as you know, once someone owns a land, they can do whatever they want. And in this case, they have already torn out the mangroves in violation of state law, and they have also put a telephone pole across the property to ensure.
Okay, I understand all of that. I was just relaying the message to you as it relates to that part.
Well, the answer is not just right away. It's the fact that you must rescind giving away public property.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our final speaker tonight is Malcolm Williams. Is he still in the audience?
He's
I
probably
think he
gone.
left. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you all. I love being the mayor of this city, and I love working with you all. Good night.